Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber, the Giga City Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Indiana University Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of over 650,000 alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, travel, and advocacy. alumni.iu.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Can a hate crimes bill finally make its way into Indiana law?
I sat in the courtroom yesterday and I watched a young man who almost murdered my child receive 30 days at probation. Is that the going right now for hate?
Ahead, we'll see if Indiana will join the 45 other states with hate crime laws on the books. Plus, Brandon Smith joins us to talk about gun control, CAFOs, and all the other important legislation moving through the Statehouse this week. Education advocates hope to continue expanding the state's pre-K program. Several counties launched pilot programs this month.
Number one, thank goodness that we as a state are finally getting there. And number two, we'll have plenty of kids for this program.
But getting kids signed up for the tuition-free programs is easier said than done. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Advocacy groups pushing for hate crimes legislation in Indiana are wondering if this will be their year. Lawmakers are considering a bill that would allow for harsher sentences if a crime is committed because of a person's characteristics. But as Barbara Brosier reports, similar bills have repeatedly failed over the past few years.
As Lakeisha Gardner testified before a Statehouse committee this week, she couldn't hold back her tears.
I sat in the courtroom yesterday and I watched a young man who almost murdered my child receive 30 days at probation. Is that the going right now for hate?
A judge handed that sentence down this week to a teen convicted of beating her son Jason. She says the racial slurs the attacker used indicated his motivation.
My child almost lost his life, all because we're African American and we were in the wrong community and did not know.
Indiana remains one of only 5 states without a hate crimes law. Republican State Senator Susan Glick is once again trying to change that. The bill she's proposing makes it an aggravating circumstance if a crime is committed because of a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Glick says, despite opponents' claims, the legislation wouldn't infringe on religious freedom or freedom of speech.
This bill would not prevent the preacher from preaching against homosexuality or a group of protesters from protesting against a different race or religious group.
But opponents argue the proposal is selective in who it protects.
The bill, if it has any effect, has the effect of limiting the people that are protected against hate crimes to only a selected list of privileged people who apparently liberal and corporate elites prefer over other people.
And the state attorney general's office thinks current Indiana law does enough to punish those who commit bias-motivated crimes.
We believe at the attorney general's office that a better approach is to appropriately punish the criminal act itself and not attempt to police thoughts and perceived motives. They're the same arguments legislators have heard for years. What's different this time around is that House Speaker Brian Bosma endorsed the idea of hate crimes legislation this summer after a woman was killed at a white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Whether Bosma's support will make a difference in the bill's fate remains unclear. Whatever happens, advocates plan to keep pushing for increased penalties for hate crimes. They say there's a reason 45 other states already have them. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brosier.
And LaKasha Gardner urged legislators to pass a hate crimes bill that goes even further than the one they're considering. She says everyone deserves to feel safe and protected. The committee will consider a long list of amendments to the bill next week. Now, Brandon Smith joins us to talk about what has been going on in the State House. Brandon, let's start with gun control legislation, a bill that would have removed Indiana's permit to carry a handgun. It was scaled back this week. What changed and what does it mean for the bill?
Well, essentially the House committee entirely rewrote the bill. Now it just changes a 4-year handgun license to a 5-year license, and it would eliminate the fee for the lifetime handgun license. And lawmakers say the original language of the bill simply didn't have the votes.
What about abortion rights? A bill this year would require doctors, hospitals, clinics to report to the state if a woman has any complications from her abortion. How are they defining complications?
Very broadly. There's a long list of things that it would include, anything from blood clots to preterm delivery and future pregnancies to anxiety or depression.
Will this create any restrictions for women in the state seeking abortions?
Well, opponents of this legislation certainly say so. They say it's really just another attempt to add more roadblocks to a woman's right to choose to seek an abortion.
Indiana could join more than 20 other states in allowing prosecutors to file murder charges if a person kills an unborn fetus regardless of its viability. This is an emotionally charged piece of issue.
Because these babies are not old enough to live outside of the womb does not mean they are not already planned, loved, and already have imprints on many hearts around them.
So Brandon, what are lawmakers trying to achieve with this legislation?
Well, it stems from a constituent, that woman who was just speaking, whose daughter was shot and killed and lost her unborn fetus in the process. As you mentioned, current law says a fetus has to be viable for a prosecutor to file murder charges. This bill would eliminate that condition.
All right, moving along, House Committee Chair Dave Wolkins announced this week he won't hear a bill this session that deals with regulating large factory farms, or CAFOs. Why is that?
Well, simply put, Wolkins doesn't like the bill. It would make several changes to regulations, including how far away from homes that a CAFO would have to be. It would extend that up to a mile. It would also require them to create manure waste management plans. It would also deal with odor standards. And Wolkins favors CAFOs and thinks the bill goes too far.
Now they're also looking at redistricting this year. They still aren't going to tackle who draws legislative district lines. Redistricting reform advocates support the bill, but many say it should go further.
I would encourage you to reinforce SB 326 with amendments unequivocally affirming that districts should not be drawn to disfavor any individual or political party, and that a socially and politically diverse group of citizens should oversee redistricting.
So Brendan, do you think this bill goes far enough to ensure fair representation in the state?
Well, supporters of redistricting reform certainly don't think so. But the Senate author of this bill, Greg Walker, who's also the chair of the Senate Elections Committee, says that in his caucus at least, this bill that he's offering is the only way to keep the debate alive this session.
Cannabidiol, or CBD, has been a hot topic at the State House this session. A House committee heard testimony this week about the value of CBD for some Hoosiers.
CBD oil won't cure me, nor does it eliminate all of my symptoms. However, it does minimize my symptoms during the day so that I can be in the moments I have left with my wife and children and grandchildren.
So what did the committee decide, and what could it mean for the future of CBD in the state?
Well, a lot of this is in flux right now because there are actually several bills in both chambers dealing with this issue. But the trend that they all seem to be going towards is legalizing CBD oil entirely, as long as it has 0.3% or less of THC, which is the primary psychoactive ingredient.
All right, thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you, Joe.
And that's just scratching the surface of what's going on in the Capitol this week. Lawmakers approved an amendment this week to require yearly sexual harassment training for all state lawmakers. The provision would require lawmakers take at least 1 hour of sexual harassment training each year. And the House voted yesterday to urge the federal government to loosen its grip on marijuana so the drug can be more effectively studied. The resolution also pushes for a state legislative study committee to examine medical marijuana legalization. The federal government classifies marijuana as a Schedule I drug on par with heroin and ecstasy. The House adopted the resolution 93-0. Now, for headlines, we go over to Lindsay Wright, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. A prison management company is scrapping plans to build a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Elkhart. The company, Core Civic, pulled its $100 million proposal after facing mounting opposition from advocacy groups and local leaders. The area has a large manufacturing industry that depends heavily on immigrant workers. Officials worried the facility would negatively impact residents' quality of life. Bartholomew County officials won't permit what many say is a puppy mill in the area. As Tyler Lake reports, the County Board of Zoning Appeals voted this week to reject the proposed dog breeding facility.
I do want to note
Bartholomew County officials knew the meeting would draw a crowd. That's why they moved it from City Hall to a much larger space at the airport. Still, community members packed the room, filling all the seats and lining the walls. Many of them holding signs in opposition to the dog breeding facility. The location for the proposed facility was next door to Chad Miller's property.
I find it undeniable that it will cause a direct and significant impact on not only my own property values, but the property values of other neighboring households. If passed, it would make my home basically unsellable.
The proposal put forward by Aaron and Lena Oberholzer would have allowed a kennel that could have housed about 100 dogs. It would have been used to breed mostly small dogs like Yorkies and Bichons. Zoning board members said the proposal didn't meet the necessary criteria to qualify for the required variances for the property. Leah Elliott sits on the board of Care Animal Rescue in Columbus. She came to the meeting with a thick roll of petitions gathered from residents opposing the facility.
There's thousands of signatures rolled into here and in this folder.
She says there's no place in Bartholomew County for a dog breeding facility.
I think our community can be proud of what our Board of Zoning Appeal members did this evening, and I'm very grateful that they came to the conclusion that they did today after a lengthy hearing in which they were very willing to hear everyone's testimony as well as question and hear from the applicant.
No one in the crowd spoke in favor of the proposal, and the vote was 4-1 against the facility. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Tyler Lake.
Well, Vigo County residents are calling on officials to come up with a plan for Terre Haute's local golf courses. As Barbara Brozier reports, the two courses have experienced years of revenue and funding loss.
The golf courses, Ray Park and Holman Links, have operated with an average deficit of nearly $500,000 per year since 2012. The Terre Haute City Council has considered proposals for privatization and for outsourcing course management to a private company, but has decided not to pursue those options for the 2018 fiscal year. Pat Goodwin is running for Terre Haute mayor in 2019. He arranged and led a community forum Thursday. Goodwin says restructuring the budget to invest more money in the parks department and golf courses would pay off in the long run.
We have to do things to invest in ourselves as a city to help improve our situation. And one of the ways that we invest in ourselves is with our parks and our golf courses.
But the budget for the golf courses this year is the same as in 2017, despite the deficit. City officials are working on a plan to cut the deficit in half by increasing revenue and cutting spending. Golfers would pay 15% more for a membership. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier.
An Indiana hospital is instituting a new holistic opioid program. The program focuses on giving patients options beyond traditional painkillers. Becca Costello has more.
Officials at Greene County General Hospital say the program is already underway and eventually it will be expanded to all patients. The changes will include offering a comfort menu, which allows patients to choose soft blankets, heating pads, or ice packs instead of opioids. In cases like childbirth, doctors are already helping prescribe pain plans ahead of time.
But we don't do that in other areas like surgery, where someone comes in, you know when you have surgery you're going to have pain, but you don't put your pain plan together till afterwards. So we're trying to be much more proactive on those sorts of things.
Reed says Greene County ranks in the middle for Indiana counties affected by the opioid epidemic, but she says they're trying to stop opioid use in their community before it gets worse.
You can't just take the drugs away, you have to take the addiction away, and you have to treat the addiction, and that doesn't just happen by no longer giving them access, because they'll find a different access, and it'll be illegal access through heroin, and that's how you can easily turn an opioid crisis into a heroin crisis. Heroin crisis turns into an HIV crisis.
Reed says they're also taking preventative measures by educating patients' family members about opioid use. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Becca Costello.
The Hoosier National Forest is loosening restrictions intended to protect bats from the deadly white nose syndrome. The fungal disease has killed millions of bats. Officials began closing the National Forest's caves nearly a decade ago as a way to help. But biologists say closing the caves year-round isn't an effective means of protecting the bats. The caves will now be open to the public from May through August, but will close the remaining months. And it's not clear whether or not a deer cull at Griffey Lake Nature Preserve was successful. Officials say they'll have that answer in the spring. That's when they'll be able to see what flowers are thriving. The sharpshooting company White Buffalo Inc. killed 62 deer at the park. They donated the meat to local food pantries.
1,682 pounds of venison was donated to the Hoosier Hills Food Bank, and I've heard that about 2/3 of that has already been distributed.
The cull cost more than $43,000. That's $700 per deer. And Joe, we could see another cull in the future, but it depends what the city learns in the spring.
Sure. Thank you very much, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Vigo County officials considering options for jail overcrowding are going back to the drawing board. And Indiana is pushing enrollment in pre-K, but the state's early pilots are encountering some obstacles. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
The WTIU WFIU news team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU WFIU news team is where you are and telling your story.
$10,000.
15? 15, you think?
20, 21,000?
600.
20. 18 fine.
24.
It's at least 40.
Look at it.
4,500,000.
650.
20.
650.
This textile would be worth about $500,000.
$500,000?
No way.
I knew it. It's just a blanket.
Laying on the back of a chair. Well, sir, you have a national treasure.
Wow.
A national treasure. Congratulations.
I can't believe this.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The Vigo County Commissioners are contracting with the company to reassess a proposal for a new county jail. As Taylor Haggerty reports, the decision has been a long time coming.
The company, Kenneth A. Ray Justice Services, will conduct a study of the justice system in the county to find possible solutions for overcrowding. Members of the community and the county council have been requesting such a study since the county accepted a proposal for a new jail. That facility was projected to cost around $62 million. Community members requested an independent study of the proposal to reassess the cost multiple times, and county council members tabled the issue indefinitely last November. Previous attempts to fund an assessment like the one proposed by RJS failed due to questions of objectivity and comprehensiveness, but commissioners selected a contract from a pool of several applications this week. And County Council member Brendan Kearns, who has repeatedly asked for an independent and in-depth reassessment study, says it's one that he and other council members can support.
What I want is somebody to show us improvements within the correctional system, not necessarily just how many beds we need to build to throw people in jail. So I think that the company that has been chosen will give us the best representation of those wishes.
The proposal aims to assess the overall justice system in Vigo County and determine possible solutions for problems like overcrowding. The county has faced multiple lawsuits related to the high number of inmates housed at the jail. Solutions could include a new facility, but might instead suggest renovations to the current facility and other smaller-scale solutions. And now the Indiana legislature is considering a bill that might make these kinds of studies a standard for all Indiana counties. State Representative Timothy Brown introduced legislation this session that would require counties to undergo a feasibility study for possible alternatives before they can begin construction or even submit a plan for a new county jail. Brown says the legislature heard testimony last year on different counties' jail needs, and it prompted him to draft the bill.
And what I found in smaller counties or even adjoining counties, that there was some jail space, in the next county over.
Kearns says the Vigo County Council likely won't see any results from the study until this summer. From there, it's unclear how long it will take to begin either renovations or construction. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Taylor Haggerty.
Children aren't the only ones benefiting from Indiana's state-funded pre-K program. On My Way PreK started in 5 counties. It did well, and the state expanded it to 15 more counties. Officials say the goal is to continue expanding, but as Lindsay Wright reports, there are still issues to work through in order for more communities to feel the impact.
Education advocates praise the benefits of quality pre-K. It not only prepares young children for kindergarten, it teaches them social skills, how to balance their emotions, and more.
For every $1 we invest in early education, it's a $4 savings down the road. That's a savings in everything from criminal justice to the social safety net type savings for that person because they become more productive over the long run.
But it's not just the children who are benefiting from On My Way PreK. Recent studies show parents benefit as well because it's a stable childcare option. That holds true for Kendra Harper. Her daughter Bailey went through the program in Marion County. Bailey's an only child, and Kendra noticed she became more independent.
She was able to, deal with other children better, handle her emotions. She was able to she was almost ready to read when she came out of pre-K.
But Bailey attending pre-K also helped Kendra finish up her law degree and work part-time at the Attorney General's office. She had peace of mind knowing Bailey was being taken care of.
And it did give me an opportunity to complete a host of internships and clerkships throughout law school because experience really matters. So without her going to the Reliable Center, we probably wouldn't have been able to do all of that.
It even led Kendra to develop a new passion. She's now on the board of directors at Early Learning Indiana, a nonprofit advocacy group.
I really didn't understand the lack of early education options in our area, or the state for that matter, until Bailey was a student here and until I talked to the director of the center and learned the issues.
Data shows more than 27,000 low-income kids in Indiana don't have access to quality pre-K. But the state is slowly starting to change that. Governor Eric Holcomb approved 15 more counties last summer to participate in On My Way PreK. Monroe County launched its program this month. It opened up 50 spots for families.
When this program came along at 127% of poverty, we thought, number one, thank goodness that we as a state are finally getting there, and number two, we'll have plenty of kids for this program.
But Peterson says it's been shocking. Not even a third of grants have been filled. On the surface, it's simple enough. First, parents can just log in and apply online.
So it's going to ask for family information, names, date of birth, language spoken. They're going to ask about your family size, your family's monthly earned income, and your family's monthly unearned income.
But the whole process isn't necessarily easy.
The language that we're using isn't always understandable, and this is, of course, language that's being used across the state, and all those communities are doing that. So I think there's some things that we can do to improve and make that process more user-friendly.
In addition to meeting income requirements, parents also must be working or be enrolled in some type of educational training. Peterson says that's a challenge as well.
There is some work we can do in helping them, both of those things, but this timeline was so quick that it was very hard to find either educational programs that qualified that they could be a part of, or to find, or to point them in the right direction for employment opportunities.
And these are just some of the issues Peterson sees. Monroe County's enrollment period ends this weekend, and plenty of spots sit open. There could be as many as 200 spots to fill in the fall. Peterson hopes the state can work to make it easier for families so more kids benefit. That, she says, will have a ripple effect on the entire community.
It creates networks, it creates community, it creates opportunities to work. It helps to address our workforce issues in this community, and it really helps prepare kids for success.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Lindsay Wright.
Now, legislators have proposed a bill that would relax some of the eligibility requirements. It would no longer require parents to work or be seeking employment or participate in educational training. And here's a sweet thing to end on. This week marks the beginning of the annual tapping of maple trees in Vigo County's Prairie Creek Park. Park employees will use the sap collected for a decades-old tradition, making maple syrup. The syrup is sold locally at the park and at the annual pancake breakfast. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber, the Giga City Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Indiana University Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of over 650,000 alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, travel, and advocacy. Alumni.iu.edu. And by WTIU members, thank you.